Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into something that's probably keeping many of you up at night.
Mm.
How do you build a sales strategy that doesn't just survive, but like actually thrives? We've got a fantastic guide from Meat Record, and joining me to dissect it is Nova. She's an absolute whiz when it comes to sustainable revenue growth.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. I'm really excited to dig into this, especially given that stat you shared earlier, 82% of DDB buyers finding sales reps unprepared. I mean, that's a problem we can solve, right?
It is a big one.
Right.
So, Nova, before we jump into Meat Record's six-step framework, let's talk about why a sales strategy even matters in the first place. We're all busy. Targets are always limiting. Why not just hit the phones and start selling?
Yeah, because you'll likely be selling to the wrong people with the wrong message at the wrong time. A strategy makes sure that everyone's efforts, from marketing to sales, are all aligned and focused on the right goals. It's kind of like having a roadmap, instead of just wandering in the wilderness hoping to stumble on gold.
Right. And that roadmap, as Meat Record lays out, it starts with knowing your target market. Sounds obvious, but they go deeper than just like basic demographics, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Slack, for example. They could just target businesses generally, but instead they really focus on those businesses who are seeking efficient team collaboration. And by understanding the specific needs of their ideal customer, their messaging and features resonate so much more effectively. It's about that hyper-targeted approach.
Okay, so it's not just about who you're selling to, it's about understanding their pain points and how your solution directly addresses those pain points.
Precisely. And once you know your target, then Meet Record emphasizes setting SMART goals. I mean, we all know the acronym, but it's about truly applying it to your sales targets.
So instead of like vague increase sales goal, you're looking at something much more specific, like increase sales of product X by 15% in Q2 by targeting Y segment through Z channels.
Right.
That's a lot more actionable.
Exactly. And that clarity then flows into the next step, defining your unique selling proposition, or USP. It's like, what makes you stand out from all the other noise? Meet Record uses some really great examples, like Slack's is all communication in one hub, or Zoom's reliable video conferencing. It's about that concise, instantly understandable value proposition.
Yeah, without it, you're just another vendor in a sea of options. So now how do we get in front of these perfectly targeted customers with our crystal clear USP?
Right. Well, step 4 is all about choosing the right sales channels. And there's no one-size-fits-all approach here. Meet Record highlights a bunch of options, like everything from free trials and outbound sales to content marketing and channel partnerships.
It's fascinating how companies like Adobe, for example, they use both direct sales and partnerships to reach a wider audience, right? Finding that sweet spot is key.
Yeah, it all goes back to understanding your ideal customer's buying process. Like, do they prefer researching independently or talking to a sales rep right away? Do they value hands-on demos or maybe more self-serve options? It's really about tailoring your channels to fit those preferences.
Makes sense. And once you've got them engaged,
Yeah.
then you need a clear sales procedure in place. It's like a roadmap for your sales team. It outlines every step from that initial contact to actually closing the deal.
Exactly. Think of Zoom again. They do initial contact, then product demos, and then move on to contract negotiation. And each stage has its own set of activities and metrics that go along with it. This really creates that predictable path to success and makes sure that you're getting consistency across your sales team.
But even with the best roadmap, things change, right? So that's where step 6 comes in, measuring and analyzing results. So what are those key performance indicators or KPIs that we should really be tracking?
Well, I mean, revenue is the obvious one, right? But you also want to look at things like conversion rates, deal size, even things like customer lifetime value. Meet Record highlights how LinkedIn Sales Navigator actually uses analytics to constantly tweak their approach, right? For better outcomes. They're not just collecting data, they're actively using it.
So we've laid out the foundation here with Meet Record's 6 steps. But how do we make this strategy actually work in the real world? That's what we'll be diving into next. So stay with us.
Welcome back. I'm excited to unpack some of these actionable tips from Meet Record that can really bring your sales strategy to life.
Yeah, let's get tactical. What are some of the things that really stood out to you in the guide?
Well, one of the most impactful but often overlooked tips is analyzing customer interactions. It's about going beyond just tracking numbers
Mhm.
and really understanding what's happening in those sales conversations.
Yeah, I'm curious, like how are companies actually using this to improve their results? I know Meet Record mentioned Hive, the project management platform, is a great example.
Yeah, Hive has seen like amazing success by actively listening to sales calls, reviewing emails, basically dissecting every customer interaction, looking for those like golden nuggets of insight that can help them refine their tactics.
And it's clearly paying off for them, I mean. They've managed to speed up their implementation time by like a whopping 41%. What kind of insights do you think they're gleaning from these conversations?
Well, it could be anything, from identifying common objections, understanding customer motivations, to even uncovering hidden pain points that they weren't even aware of. And by analyzing these conversations, they can then personalize their approach, address concerns more effectively, and ultimately guide customers through the sales process more smoothly.
So it sounds like a really powerful way to turn qualitative data into um, actionable improvements, right?
Absolutely. And this ties into another key tip, refining your target profiles with data. It's about moving beyond just basic demographics
Mm.
and really understanding your ideal customer's behavior, their preferences, their buying patterns, all that.
So, like, practically speaking, how can we use data to refine these profiles?
Well, think about segmentation. By analyzing data, you can identify which customer segments have the most pressing needs for your product, what their preferred method of engagement is, even which marketing messages resonate best with them.
Yeah, this is where those account-based marketing campaigns can really shine, right? You're focusing your efforts on a highly targeted group of accounts that are most likely to convert into those high-value customers.
Exactly. That level of personalization is so key in today's competitive landscape.
Okay, let's talk about another tip that caught my attention. Leveraging prospect feedback. It seems so obvious, but are companies actually doing this effectively?
Well, Meet Record highlights a great example with OmniKey. They're a sales enablement platform, and they're actually using prospect feedback to transform their onboarding process for new sales recruits.
Oh, wow. So they're actually using call recordings to provide real-time feedback
Yeah,
and automate the coaching process. That's pretty innovative.
it is. And it's led to a significant improvement. They've actually been able to double the ramp up time for new sales reps.
That's huge. So what's the key takeaway here for our listeners? How can they start leveraging prospect feedback more effectively?
Well, I think it starts with creating a culture where feedback is embraced, and it's seen as this valuable tool for growth. Encourage your team, both new and experienced reps, to analyze the feedback they receive, identify patterns, adjust their approach accordingly, whether it's tweaking their cold email pitches, crafting better responses to common objections, or even knowing when to loop in a product expert for a more technical discussion, for example.
So it's all about constantly iterating and improving based on what you're hearing from your prospects.
Exactly. And that brings us to another data-driven tip. Using analytics to fine-tune those sales pitches. This one really resonated with me because it highlights the power of data-driven decision-making.
Yeah, Meet Record used the example of Gym Launch, this company that analyzed over 85,000 customer calls to develop a winning sales pitch. That's a lot of data.
It is, and the results really speak for themselves. By identifying the language and approaches that resonated most with their customers, they were able to shorten their sales cycle by 31%. I mean, imagine the impact that could have on your business.
It's incredible to see how analyzing like that volume of data can reveal such valuable insights. What's the key takeaway here for sales leaders?
Well, don't be afraid to experiment and, A/B test different approaches, track what's working, what's not, and constantly iterate based on the data. You might be surprised at what you discover.
And finally, let's talk about a tip that really reinforces everything we've discussed so far. Regularly monitoring and adjusting your metrics. Seems like a no-brainer. But why is this so important?
Well, because the market's constantly changing. Your competitors are evolving and your customer needs are shifting, right? What worked last quarter might not work this quarter.
So it's all about staying agile, constantly analyzing your KPIs, and being willing to adjust your approach based on what the data is telling you.
Exactly. Your sales strategy isn't like a set it and forget it document. It's this living, breathing process that requires constant monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation.
It sounds like Meet Records tips really emphasize the importance of data-driven decision-making and continuous improvement.
They do, and the beauty of it is that these tips can be applied to businesses of all sizes, from startups to large enterprises.
Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this episode, and I'm sure our listeners are eager to put these tips into action. But before we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to ponder. Imagine a world where you could predict which deals will close with 100% accuracy. What would that mean for your business? How would it change your sales strategy?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? I mean, think about the advancements we've seen in analytics and AI. We're already using these technologies to analyze massive data sets, identify patterns, and make predictions in other areas of business. It's not a huge leap to imagine applying this to sales.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been unpacking Meat Record's guide to building a sustainable sales strategy. And Nova, that final question we left our listeners with really got me thinking. Predicting deal closures with 100% accuracy. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It really does. But, think about all the advancements we've seen in data analytics and AI. I mean, we're already using these technologies to analyze these massive data sets, right? Identifying patterns, making predictions in other areas of business. So it's not like a huge leap to imagine applying this to sales.
We're talking about moving beyond just, gut feelings and educated guesses to a world where data is really driving our sales forecasting. What could that actually look like in practice?
Well, imagine being able to pinpoint which leads are most likely to convert or identify deals that are at risk of stalling. You could even predict your quarterly revenue with like a really high degree of accuracy. This would totally transform sales forecasting. Taking it from this guessing game to a truly data-driven process, allowing for much more efficient resource allocation, and more targeted campaigns.
Right, it would also change the way sales teams operate, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of just spreading their efforts across a wide range of prospects, they could really zero in on those with the highest probability of closing.
Exactly. It would allow sales leaders to prioritize their team's time and efforts, right? Making sure they're focused on those deals that are most likely to actually drive revenue.
But even with all this data and predictive power, wouldn't we risk losing that human touch in sales? I mean, building relationships, understanding customer needs, that stuff still matters, right?
Oh, absolutely. Technology is a powerful tool, but it's not a replacement for that human connection. In fact, I think data can actually enhance that connection. By understanding our customers better, we can tailor our approach to their specific needs and build stronger relationships.
So it's about finding that balance, using data to empower our sales teams, not to replace them.
Precisely. It's about combining those data-driven insights with human empathy, intuition, and experience to create a truly winning sales strategy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember, Nova?
Building a sustainable sales strategy is a journey. It's about constantly learning, adapting, evolving your approach based on the data, the market trends, and most importantly, the feedback from your customers.
Great advice, Nova. And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights. That'll help you build a sales strategy that drives sustainable growth for your business. Until next time.